Hi students, this is Mr. Yao. In the last two lessons, we have learned about 45-45-90 and 30-60-90 triangles inside the unit circle. And now, after we have learned both lessons, we are going to try to generate a whole unit circle using those special triangles. Okay, here's the first quadrant. The angles that we are working with would be 0 degree, 30 degree, and then 45 degree, 60 degree, and 90 degree. For 0 degree, well, the value is right here, and that is just a point on the unit circle, which means the radius is 1. So that is 1, 0. The next one is actually related to a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So try to remember that all the radius is 1. If that's 1, then the opposite side would have to be 1/2. So the actual value is square root of 3 over 2, comma 1/2. The next one is the 45-degree triangle. For 45-degree triangles, the values for the legs are the same. So that's why it is square root of 2 over 2 and square root of 2 over 2 for both x and y. And then 60-degree is almost like the 30-degree triangle. The value is flipped because now, yes, 60-degree is facing the y, and that's actually the longer leg. So that is going to be 1/2, comma square root of 3 over 2. And then for the second quadrant, of course, we have 90 degree already. Then we have 120 degree because it's 30 degree more. Then it's 45 degree more than 100, then 90 degree. So it's going to be 135 degree. Next one is going to be 150, and then we will have 180 degrees. 90 degree is right on the top on the y-axis, so it's going to be 0, 1. The next one, when you got to 120 degree, something you should notice. 120 degree actually has the same height as the 60 degree, which means they should actually have the exact same y value. And the x, well, since it's in the second quadrant, we're just going to flip it. So it is going to be negative 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. Then when we got to 135 degree, same idea. They are the same height. So that means the y values will be the same. We're just flipping the x. So here it is. Negative square root of 2 over 2, comma square root of 2 over 2. 150, same thing. It is the same height as the 30-degree angle. So that means the y value is going to be the same. So it's going to be 1/2 for y and negative square root of 3 over 2 for the x. Moving into the third quadrant. 180 degree at 30 degree, that's going to be 210 degree. 180 degree at 45 is going to be 225 degree. And then we have 240 degree. And the end of third quadrant is going to be 270 degrees. And for 180, that is going to be negative 1, 0. Okay, next, 210. Well, 210, you can kind of see that 210 actually is the same amount left compared to 150 degrees. That means they should share the same x value. So the x is going to be a negative square root of 3 over 2, but the y, since you kind of flip it, is going to be a negative 1/2. And then 225 and 135 are related. So that means both x and y will be negative. So it's going to be negative square root of 2 over 2 and negative square root of 2 over 2. Next, 240 is related to the 120 degree. So that means we're going to keep the x value, but we are going to flip the y value. So that is going to be negative 1/2, negative square root of 3 over 2. Then, of course, we've got the 270, and that is going to be 0, negative 1. Okay, keep adding more to get to the other quadrants. The last quadrant, fourth quadrant, at 30 on top of 270 is 300. Then we got 315 degree, and lastly, 330 degree. Okay, so in this case, we may notice now you can actually use either the third quadrant or the first quadrant. You should see that 300 degree and 60 degrees, they are both the same amount to the right. So that means they have the same x value, which is going to be 1/2, but the y is flipped. So the y is going to be negative square root of 3 over 2. And same thing for the 45 degree, that is the same x value for 315. So that is going to be square root of 2 over 2, comma, negative square root of 2 over 2. And then lastly, we have the 30 degree and the 330. they still have the same x value, which is going to be square root of 3 over 2, comma, negative 1/2. A couple things that you still need to remember. So inside the first quadrant, all trig values are positive. Inside the second quadrant, sine is positive. Inside the third quadrant, tangent is positive. And inside the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive. So it's going to be the all students take calculus. There's our catchphrase to try to help us remember that. And something else that you can also write on the side, sine is your y value, cosine is your x value, and tangent is your y over x, which of course means your secant would be 1 over y, your cosecant will be 1 over y, secant will be 1 over x, and cotangent will be x over y. And if you want, you can also choose to write down all the tangent values next to all the coordinates. Let's actually do that right now. So for the first one, tangent 0 degree is 0 over 1, which is just 0. The next one is actually 1 over square root of 3. It's square root of 3 over 3. Next, the x and y are the same, so it's just going to be 1. And then it's square root of 3 over 1, which is square root of 3. When it's 90 degree, 1 over 0, that is undefined. Second quadrant, square root of 3 over a negative 1, so it's a negative square root of 3. Square root of 2 over negative square root of 2, that is a negative 1. Then it's 1 over negative square root of 3 is negative square root of 3 over 3. Then we got 0 over negative 1, which is 0. Moving to the third quadrant, all the tangent values should actually be positive inside the third quadrant. So we kind of can just copy down what we already had in the first quadrant. Square root of 3 over 3, that is 1, and that is just square root of 3. 270 degree is the same as 90 degree, so it's also going to be undefined. Then we got to negative square root of 3, negative 1, and negative square root of 3 over 3. And now we have a more completed unit circle. Even with that, the values seem to be, okay, and especially when it's combined with special triangles, but it's still a lot. So we're going to try to find an easier way to identify all of these, to try to remember everything. In fact, combining the fact that all students take calculus and also these setup for the trig ratios inside the coordinate system, all you need to remember would be the first quadrant. So here they are: 0 degree, 30 degree, 45 degree, 60 degree, and 90 degree. And even if you don't agree, well, it is actually quite simple. So remember, trig ratio is like counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to write down all the values for sine, for example. Sine 0 degree is 0. Sine 30 degree is 1/2. Sine 45 degree is square root of 2 over 2. Sine 60 degree is square root of 3 over 2. And sine 90 degree is a 1. And you may kind of notice, oh wait, Mr. Yao is saying 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I can see the 1, the 2, and the 3. Well, that's where it is. Now let's see where the 0 and the 4 come from. 0 is actually the same as 0 over 2, or square root of 0 over 2. 1 over 2 is the same as a square root of 1 over 2. Then square root of 2 over 2 is, of course, just square root of 2 over 2. And then we still have the square root of 3 over 2. As for the last number, that is square root of 4 over 2, because square root of 4 is 2, 2 over 2 is actually 1. So there they are. If you actually write the first quadrant, these would be the values actually you could remember. Now for cosine, well, cosine is always the backwards of sine because of the complementary relationship. So when you try to write the cosine, it's actually going to be backwards. So instead of doing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's actually 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So start with the 1, which is square root of 4 over 2, and then going down to square root of 3 over 2, and square root of 2 over 2, and 1/2, and then 0. As for the tangent, well, tangent is actually the y over x. Sine is your y, cosine is your x, so it's basically the sine over cosine. So 0 over 1 is 0, 1/2 over square root of 3 over 2 is square root of 3 over 3. Then the square root of 2 over 2 and the square root of 2 over 2, they're the same, so it's 1. Then square root of 3 over 2 over 1/2 is just a square root of 3. Lastly, 1 over 0 is undefined. There we go. So this is a table format for you to kind of see the relationship. Now let's see how we can quickly write down all of these values in a quadrant. Okay, let's write down the angles first. We have 0 degree, 30 degree, 45 degree, 60 degree, and 90 degree. Okay, remember sine is y and cosine is x. If you are having trouble remembering that, well then just draw a little simple triangle. Well, there's your x value, there's your y value, your theta is right here, that's your 1. Well, of course, sine is going to be the opposite over hypotenuse, so it's going to be 1 y over 1. That's why it's just y. Cosine is actually x over 1. That's why it's just x. So let's write down all the sine value because, again, it is like counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 for sine. So that means we're going to write down all the y coordinates. First is 0, and then we got 1/2. Then the square root of 2 over 2, the square root of 3 over 2. Next one is square root of 4 over 2, which is just 1. And then for cosine, we can just kind of go backwards, or you can choose to count down. Go backwards by starting 0 on the top, then 1/2, square root of 2 over 2, and square root of 3 over 2, and lastly, a 1. And then the tangent value is, again, y over x. So tangent is y over x because opposite over adjacent. So that's going to be a 0, a 1 over square root of 3, so it's square root of 3 over 3. They're the same, so 1. Square root of 3 over 1 is just square root of 3. Lastly, 1 over 0 is undefined. There we go. Now we just quickly generated the first quadrant of the unit circle. And then if you combine the first quadrant with all student take calculus for all 4 quadrants, you can easily generate a whole unit circle. And that is the third lesson for unit circle. That is all. Thank you.